Well, hello everyone and welcome back to GLB Productions. My name is Bruno Luce. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I'll be reviewing the Boss AD-2 Acoustic Preamp pedal, which also features a built-in direct box. Now, this pedal was released in late 2016, and Boss claimed that it will allow electroacoustic guitarists to experience, quote, natural studio quality sound whilst performing on any stage. Now, before we examine that very bold claim, let's look at the pedal specifications. You probably noticed already that it follows the familiar Boss pedal form factor, being 73mm wide, 129mm long, and 59mm high. The pedal weighs 450 grams or 1 pound, including its battery, which is the common 9-volt type. Input impedance is 10 megohms. Now, this is significant because your typical Boss pedals have an input impedance of just 1 megohm. This, they feel, is optimized for magnetic pickups. The AD-2, on the other hand, is designed to work with piezo pickups, which need a very high input impedance of 10 megohms. Otherwise, they don't sound correct. Now, most acoustic electric guitars today already have a built-in preamp, so this is not a major concern, but it's a useful feature to have because in the event that your onboard preamp goes down, it's possible to wire the pickup directly to the guitar's output jack and run that into the AD-2, and therefore use the AD-2 as a replacement for your guitar's onboard preamp. So this is something that is very good to have as a backup, if nothing else. As you can see, the pedal has two outputs. It has a normal unbalanced output, which is designed to connect to other pedals, an acoustic amplifier, or the like. It also has a balanced line out connector, which is designed to connect directly to a PA system, recorder, or mixing console. Now, it's important to understand what this is. First of all, it is not a headphone output. Although the connector is on balanced 1/4 inch, which looks very much, in fact, is identical to the connector on your headphones, it is not a stereo output. It is a balanced mono output, and it cannot be used as a headphone output. Secondly, most people are accustomed to seeing balanced outputs on male XLR. This one simply happens to be on TRS, or balanced 1/4 inch. What that means is that you'll need an adapter from TRS to XLR male in order to use this. Adapters are available, such as this one here, which combine the two into one unit. You can also make your own. As you can see here, I have a cable which is TRS on one end and XLR male on the other end. So this is not a big issue at all. These adapters are readily available and they can be made up very easily if you know how to solder. So I think that what Boss was doing here is they were trying to simplify the pedal and save space at the same time. Both outputs can be used at the same time. For example, one to connect to an amp on stage and the other to the PA system. From the factory, the signal to both outputs is the same, but more on that later. The power is via a DC adapter, your standard Boss PSA series adapter, or any 9-volt adapter which is center negative can be used, or 9-volt battery. Now, Boss say that the battery life is about 6 hours. I've been testing this pedal for a couple of months, and I find that if you play 2-hour gigs, the battery will last about 4 gigs, beginning to run down in the middle of the 4th gig. And the way that you know it, of course, is that this battery check light will begin to go dim, at which point you should either switch to external power or change the battery. Now, this is not excellent battery life, but for a pedal like this that does a lot, I think it's a fair compromise. The pedal is made in Taiwan, feels very solidly built, as do all Boss pedals. The entire thing is metal, with the exception, of course, of the knobs and of this screw that holds the battery compartment closed. Now, one of the features of the Boss AD-2 that you should be aware of is the fact that it can be programmed to output the ambience effect to either both the output and line-out connectors or just to the output connector. A time where you would use the latter setting would be where you would ask your front-of-house engineer to add reverb or ambience at the front-of-house console, which was appropriate to the venue. This would also apply if you are listening to your guitar via the monitor system. The idea there being that you being on stage, you don't necessarily know what type of reverb or ambience is appropriate for that venue. So the way that you do this selection is you hold the pedal down and then you switch it on by plugging in. You will see this light flash either quickly or slowly. If it flashes quickly, the ambience effect is going to both outputs. If it flashes slowly, it's going to just the output and not the line out. The way you make the selection is by turning the ambience knob. When the ambience knob is between the off and 12 o'clock position, it outputs only to the output and not the line out. When it is further clockwise than that, it outputs to both outputs. So let's demonstrate that here. We'll hold the pedal down and plug in. You'll notice that this now blinks slowly, right? If I turn this past the 12 o'clock position, it starts blinking rapidly. If I turn it back, it goes back to blinking slowly. So right now, I'm going to set it to the default setting, which is output to both outputs, and simply release the pedal. That's how you do the programming. All right, now let's go about getting some sounds. So our signal chain for this demonstration is the guitar into the Boss AD-2. We're coming out of the line output using balanced 1/4 inch, and we're running directly into the video camera. The automatic gain control on the camera is switched off, and in this case I've had to switch in a 20 dB pad on the camera because the output is fairly hot. It's not quite line level, but it is quite a bit more than mic level, so we're just padding it down there so that we don't overdrive the input of the camera. So to begin with, we're going to be using a Takamine CP7MO TT. This is a thermal spruce top oven callback and sides OM size guitar. Uses the Takamine line driver preamp, which means that it has no external controls on the guitar. Now, one thing that I have to stress in this demonstration is the need to listen on headphones or good speakers, because the middle name of this pedal really is subtle, and if you don't have a good set of headphones or speakers, you will not hear many of the changes that we are making here. So with that set up, the pedal is in bypass. This is the sound that you get. That's the bypass sound of the pedal. As you can hear, it's very clean and it's exactly what you'd expect from a good quality DI box. Now, one thing that you need to know is that as soon as you switch the pedal on, the tone changes, even if you have all the knobs at the fully off position. I've discovered that this is fairly typical of Boss acoustic pedals, and it was something that I touched on in my review of the AD-3. You can make up your own mind, but to my ear, the sound seems to become a little bit bigger or a little bit fatter. It's as though there's a little bit of compression and EQ already going on, even with the knobs all set to minimum. So once again, here's the bypass sound. So let's begin with the Ambience knob, because that is the most straightforward control. What the Ambience knob does is it adds a room type reverb to the signal. And it's important to understand that this is not a long hall or cathedral type reverb. It's a quite short and very pleasant reverb that's designed to simulate a smaller acoustic space. So let's begin with the knob at the 9 o'clock position. Go up to 12 o'clock. Here you'll really begin to hear it. And now on to the 2 o'clock position. And finally, right the way around. So, as you can hear, there's plenty of reverb in there, although it is a little bit on the short side. Maybe with it cranked right the way around, it begins to get a little bit longer, but where I like to run this when performing in a live venue, which already has its own reverb, is round about the 11 o'clock position. Alright, so we'll switch that off. Now, the next knob down here, which is the notch knob, this is basically a feedback control device, and what it is it applies a narrow band cut filter, the frequency of which is controlled by the knob position. So if you have some feedback, what you do is you'd simply sweep it around until the feedback goes away. So for example, let's say you had a feedback at low A. A bit lower down. So this knob is essentially designed as a feedback control device. You can use it as a sort of EQ, but in my experience it lives permanently at the off position, so there's not a lot to talk about there. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now let's discuss the Acoustic Resonance knob, this guy right here. This acoustic resonance features on several recent Boss products, including the VE8 Acoustic Singer pedal and the new Acoustic Singer amplifiers that were released in 2017. Now, Boss says that it is designed for under-saddle piezo pickups and restores the, quote, natural resonance that is characteristic of an acoustic guitar. Adjusting the knob apparently, quote, adjusts multiple parameters inside the AD-2 to achieve the perfect tonal balance for any style. Now, reading that sounds highly suspicious to me, and of course, I didn't really believe them. The thing is that having listened to a number of online reviews of this pedal, the sound in the reviews did not seem to change much at all when they adjusted this knob. So I've done a lot of listening using several different guitars, and this is my take on the acoustic resonance control. To begin with, from off to the 9 o'clock position, it seems to act as a mid cut, and I believe that this is the range where it is most useful. So let's just play you that. First of all, the pedal is on, but all the knobs are at 0. With it at 9 o'clock. Let's go back to 0, we'll do a bit of finger style. Nine o'clock. So, as you can hear, it does appear to just pull the mids out slightly, that kind of, 5 to 800 hertz range that makes piezo pickups sound honky, nasally, plasticky, etc. So, that's quite useful in my opinion. Now, from the 9 to the 12 o'clock position, it seems to add treble. Right, so the sound gets brighter. So once again, and at the same time that mid cutting continues. Do that again for you, fingerstyle. When you go past the 12 o'clock position, it seems to add bass and also add compression. It's very difficult for me to tell what exactly is going on, and I've spent a long time listening to this pedal, but here's the sound. You can make up your own mind. So as you can hear, the pedal is apparently trying to compensate for the sound of a piezo pickup. I've had very mixed results with this control. When I was first buying the pedal, I tried it on a Taylor 400 series guitar, and the guitar sounded really quite good with both knobs at the 12 o'clock position. So that sounded a bit like this. With my Takamines, which have the palathetic pickup and their own preamp systems, I have found that this knob generally lives almost completely off. Sometimes I'll add a little bit. So my typical setting for like the guitar that I'm playing now, the CP7MO TT, would be something like this. So I find that that gives quite a nice balance between the dry sound of the guitar and what this control is trying to do. So I guess the lesson here is that you need to experiment. Don't assume that you need to use this at all. If you have a good sounding acoustic, it may live permanently off or just add a little bit. I find that between the fully off and the 9 o'clock positions, this is where I use it the most. Generally just as a sort of a mid-cut. It's particularly useful on this guitar because the line driver preamp doesn't have any external tone controls. When I get way up here, I find that it really sucks the sound out of the middle, which is where the tone of the acoustic guitar is so important. Alright, so what I've done now is I've switched over to another guitar. This is a Breedlove Retro OMSMe. And the reason that I'm doing this is because this is a 6-year guitar and it has 6-year-old pickup and preamp technology. This guitar has a very basic undersaddle piezo pickup. It doesn't have the multi-element pickup that the Takamine has, and it has an LR Baggs LRT CV tuner preamp. So for this demo, we're going to leave the preamp completely flat and we're going to listen to the sound of hopefully just the pickup. So bypass sound is like this. So as you can hear, this guitar doesn't sound nearly as good as the Tak, and the reason is the pickup technology is pretty primitive by today's standards. So here's fingerstyle. So we've already established that the pickup in this guitar sounds pretty mediocre. Let's see what the AD-2 can do to help. Dry sound once again. What I tend to do is I will adjust the ambience first. So let's give it a bit of ambience. Now let's bring in our acoustic resonance. To my ear, that is already too much, so I'm going to back off a little bit. I don't know, folks. To me, this acoustic resonance control doesn't really do anything special. Let's see. Let's try and go to town with it. Let's go all the way to here. Now you see, to my ear, that sounds really horrible. It sounds like it's had the middle just completely sucked out of it, which is what you don't want to do to acoustic guitar. So let's go back. All right, 9 o'clock, that seems to be the best. That is definitely an improvement, everyone. So if you've got an older guitar like this Breedlove, which has just a simple undersaddle piezo transducer, this might be something to consider, not just for the ambience, but also to make that pickup sound a little bit less quacky, a little bit less honky. Alright everyone, so that's my review of the Boss AD-2 Acoustic Preamp. I found over the past couple of months that this has been a great all-in-one solution. It's very compact, the DI function is quiet, and I like the fact that I can choose between a transparent sound and I can also add a little bit of color. As I mentioned, the key word really for this pedal is subtle, right? The ambience is pretty subtle. The acoustic resonance, in my opinion, needs to be subtle. If you overdo it, it just destroys the mid-range of the guitar. And the notch is one of those nice-to-have features that hopefully you'll never need to use. Disadvantages of the pedal, first of all, the battery life is not terribly good. As I mentioned, 6 hours, yeah, that's okay. I typically will either carry spare batteries or I will use a Boss 9-volt adapter. Apart from that, I think the lack of a stereo output for me is significant. I love my Boss AD-3 because it gives me the ability to run the acoustic guitar in stereo if I choose. And to my ear, effects like chorus and reverb all sound so much better in stereo. However, with a box this size, you can't get everything. And having both the unbalanced and balanced outputs to me is a huge plus. So, thumbs up to Boss, well done. I would definitely consider this if you are an acoustic guitarist and like simple, straightforward, easy to use gear. This is Bruno Luce for GLB Productions. Thank you very much for watching. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.